The most disturbing aspect of this case isn't just that the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall has been terrorizing visitors for nearly 3 centuries. It's that in 1936, 2 photographers from Country Life magazine captured what many consider to be the most convincing photographic evidence of a ghost ever recorded. The image shows a translucent figure in a brown dress descending the grand staircase of the Norfolk estate, her face a void of empty eye sockets. For almost 90 years, experts have analyzed this photograph, and despite advances in forensic technology, no one has been able to definitively prove it's a fake. This is the story of Lady Dorothy Walpole, whose tragic life and mysterious death created one of England's most enduring and terrifying hauntings. Viewer discretion is advised. If you're fascinated by paranormal investigations and documented ghost sightings, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel with notifications turned on for more spine-chilling mysteries like this one. Our story begins in the early 18th century with one of the most vivacious and beautiful women in English high society. Lady Dorothy Walpole was born in 1686, the sister of Robert Walpole, who would later become Britain's first Prime Minister. Dorothy was known for her striking beauty, her wit, and her passionate nature, qualities that would ultimately lead to both her rise in society and her tragic downfall. She lived during a time when women of the aristocracy were expected to be ornamental rather than independent, and Dorothy's strong will would prove to be both her greatest asset and her ultimate curse. In 1713, Dorothy married Charles Townshend, the second Viscount Townshend, in what appeared to be a successful union between 2 powerful families. The couple took up residence at Raynham Hall, a magnificent Palladian mansion in Norfolk that had been in the Townshend family for generations. The estate, with its grand staircases, ornate rooms, and sprawling grounds, seemed the perfect setting for a fairy tale marriage. However, beneath the surface of this aristocratic paradise, dark secrets were already beginning to take root. The early years of Dorothy's marriage appeared happy enough, and she bore her husband several children while fulfilling her duties as a viscountess. However, Dorothy's passionate nature and independent spirit made her ill-suited for the restrictive life expected of an 18th-century aristocratic wife. She was intelligent, opinionated, and unwilling to simply fade into the background as many women of her station were expected to do. These qualities, while admirable, would eventually bring her into conflict with her husband and the rigid social expectations of her time. The turning point in Dorothy's life came when she allegedly began an affair with Lord Wharton, a notorious rake and libertine who was known throughout London society for his scandalous behavior. Whether the affair actually took place or was merely suspected by her increasingly paranoid husband remains a matter of historical debate. However, what is certain is that Charles Townshend became convinced of his wife's infidelity and decided to take drastic action to preserve his family's honor and reputation. In a move that would seal Dorothy's fate and create the conditions for one of England's most famous hauntings, Charles Townshend made the decision to imprison his wife within Raynham Hall. Dorothy was confined to her rooms, forbidden from leaving the estate or receiving visitors. She was effectively cut off from the outside world, trapped within the very walls that had once represented her elevated status in society. The woman who had once been the toast of London society was now a prisoner in her own home, watched constantly by servants loyal to her husband. The conditions of Dorothy's imprisonment were both physically and psychologically devastating. She was denied access to her children, forbidden from corresponding with her family, and isolated from all human contact except for the servants who brought her meals and monitored her activities. The grand rooms of Raynham Hall, once filled with laughter and conversation, became her prison cells. The beautiful gowns she had once worn to court functions were replaced by simple brown dresses, as if her husband wanted to strip away every reminder of her former life and status. Dorothy's health began to deteriorate rapidly under these conditions. The combination of isolation, despair, and the constant stress of her imprisonment took a severe toll on both her physical and mental well-being. Servants reported that she could be heard pacing her rooms at night, weeping and calling out for her children. Her once vibrant personality was slowly being crushed by the weight of her circumstances, and those who saw her during this period described her as a shadow of her former self. The exact circumstances of Dorothy's death in 1726 remain shrouded in mystery and controversy. The official cause was listed as smallpox, but many historians and paranormal researchers have questioned this explanation. Some theories suggest that she may have been poisoned by her husband or his agents, while others believe she may have died by suicide, unable to bear the psychological torture of her imprisonment any longer. The most disturbing theory is that she may have been deliberately infected with smallpox as a means of eliminating her while maintaining plausible deniability. What is known is that Dorothy's death was sudden, and that her husband showed remarkably little grief for a man who had supposedly loved his wife enough to imprison her rather than divorce her. Charles Townsend quickly remarried and seemed eager to put the entire episode behind him. However, Dorothy's story was far from over. Within just a few years of her death, servants and visitors to Raynham Hall began reporting strange and terrifying encounters with a ghostly figure in brown dress. The first documented sighting of the Brown Lady occurred in 1735, just 9 years after Dorothy's death, during a Christmas party at Raynham Hall. Guests reported seeing a woman in a brown brocade dress walking through the halls of the mansion, her face pale and her eyes appearing as dark, empty sockets. The apparition seemed to glide rather than walk, and witnesses described feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness and despair in her presence. Word of these sightings quickly spread throughout English society, and Raynham Hall began to develop a reputation as one of the most haunted houses in England. Over the following decades, the Brown Lady became a regular presence at Raynham Hall, with sightings reported by everyone from servants to distinguished guests. One of the most famous early encounters occurred in the 1830s when Captain Frederick Marryat, a friend of the family and a respected naval officer, was staying at the hall. Marryat was a skeptic who had come to the estate specifically to investigate the ghost stories and debunk them. However, his experience would convert him into a true believer. According to Marryat's own account, he encountered the Brown Lady in one of the upstairs corridors late at night. The apparition appeared as a woman in brown dress, but when she turned to face him, he saw that her eye sockets were completely empty, creating a horrifying void where her eyes should have been. Marryat, a man accustomed to danger and combat, was so terrified by the encounter that he drew his pistol and fired at the ghost. The bullet passed harmlessly through the apparition and lodged in the door behind her, while the Brown Lady simply smiled and vanished. The most significant moment in the Brown Lady's long history of hauntings came on September 19, 1936, when two photographers from Country Life magazine, Captain Hubert Provand and Indra Shira, were commissioned to photograph the interior of Raynham Hall for a feature article. The photographers were working their way through the mansion, documenting its architectural features and historical artifacts, when they reached the main staircase, the same staircase where Dorothy had once walked as the lady of the house. As Provand prepared to photograph the staircase, Shira suddenly exclaimed that he could see a figure descending the stairs. Provand, who could see nothing unusual, nevertheless took the photograph at Shira's insistence. When the film was developed, it revealed what appeared to be a translucent figure in a flowing dress moving down the staircase. The image was so clear and detailed that it immediately became one of the most famous ghost photographs ever taken. The 1936 photograph of the Brown Lady created a sensation when it was published in Country Life magazine. Paranormal investigators, skeptics, and photography experts all examined the image, trying to determine whether it was genuine or the result of some kind of hoax or photographic error. Despite decades of analysis using increasingly sophisticated technology, no one has been able to definitively prove that the photograph is fake. The image shows details that would have been extremely difficult to fake using 1930s photography techniques, and both photographers maintained until their deaths that they had not manipulated the image in any way. The photograph reignited interest in the Brown Lady legend and brought international attention to Raynham Hall. Paranormal investigators from around the world came to study the case, and the Brown Lady became one of the most famous ghosts in the world. The image has been analyzed by experts in photography, digital imaging, and forensic science, but the mystery of its authenticity remains unsolved. Today, nearly 3 centuries after Dorothy Walpole's tragic death, the Brown Lady continues to be reported at Raynham Hall. While the current owners of the estate are more private about paranormal activity than their predecessors, visitors and staff members still occasionally report encounters with a sad figure in brown dress. The ghost seems particularly active during autumn months, leading some researchers to speculate that there may be a connection between Dorothy's death and the Halloween season. The story of the Brown Lady represents more than just a ghost story. It's a tale of a woman whose life was destroyed by the rigid social expectations and male dominance of her era. Dorothy Walpole was a victim of a system that gave her husband absolute power over her life and death, and her continued presence at Raynham Hall may represent her refusal to be silenced, even in death. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the Brown Lady serves as a haunting reminder of the injustices faced by women throughout history. If you found this investigation into one of history's most documented hauntings as fascinating and chilling as we did, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel with notifications turned on. We explore the most compelling paranormal cases and historical mysteries, bringing you stories that blur the line between history and the supernatural. Your support helps us continue investigating these remarkable cases and preserving the stories of those who may still be trying to tell their tales from beyond the grave. Until next time, remember that some stories are too powerful to be silenced by death, and sometimes the most convincing evidence of the paranormal comes from the most unexpected sources.